Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swamini Tinamani Namaste Saraswati Devi Guruvani Pacharine Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paskatya Desatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasati Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Gaur Premanandi Ki Jai. Hare Krishna. So today we're going to continue hearing some more about the lecture that Prabhupada gave on the fifth canto, 5th chapter, 2nd verse in Hyderabad, April 13th, 1975. Why is this? Because there's a lot of important information in this lecture explaining how to become a good devotee of Krishna. And that's what we all want. We want to all become good devotees of Krishna. So let me just go over some of the homeworks that I received. So I received homework from Prabhalika and Shrestha and Samart. So let's read Prabhalika's first. And what she did was, she said, read Srila Prabhupada's lecture on Srimad Bhagavatam 5.5.2 on April 13, 1975 in Hyderabad. And add more details to the difference between a devotee and a non-devotee. So, devotees don't want ants to be killed, or in other words, they don't kill ants for fun, and that's good. And they have their real Swarupa, or they know what their Swarupa is. What does Swarupa mean? It means that one is not conditioned by the modes of material nature, and one has eternity, bliss, and full of knowledge. So the devotee knows that they are the eternal servant of Krishna. The devotee understands that he or she is part and parcel of Krishna, and their only duty or job is to serve Krishna. And they are anukulyena krishnana silanam. That means that anukula, they are always engaged in bhakti for the pleasure of Krishna. Krishna consciousness means how to serve Krishna, how to spread Krishna's glories all over the world, how to make people Krishna conscious. This is Krishna consciousness. And the devotee knows that his essential identity is as the soul and not the body. And is always thinking of Krishna and how to spread his glories, how it's possible to adopt the means and ways and plans, and always think like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and all the Vaishnavas, Acharyas, basically how to preach and spread the message of Krishna. And the recommended yajna for this Kali Yuga is Sankirtan. And Mahatmas are fully surrendered unto the lotus feet of Krishna. They have controlled senses. They don't want anything that is not connected to Krishna. So devotees are always thinking how to help others become devotees and be liberated from the cycle of birth and death. And they associate with great sadhus and great devotees. They don't have any attachment for material things. If you become Krishna conscious, then karma, jnana, yoga, everything becomes perfect simply by worshiping Krishna. You get all your desires fulfilled, that is spiritual desires, not material desires. And soon you won't have no material desires. They'll be all replaced with spiritual desires to please Krishna. And therefore one should worship Krishna. A devotee worships Krishna with no material desires. Krishna is the only shelter. So she did pretty good homework. And about non-devotees, she said non-devotees are virupa, which means they are controlled by the three modes of material nature: goodness, passion, and ignorance. They identify themselves with the body. My body is American or Indian, etc. And they're always pratikula, working against the desire of Krishna, or will of Krishna. They are Krishna conscious because they are thinking about Krishna, but their thinking is how to kill Krishna, like Kamsa. And they think, I am this body, this material body, and they only think about how to develop their body, their relatives, their family, their country, and they think that they are independent, even though everyone is in the clutches of Maya. And Maya is so strong, and they have uncontrolled senses, and they want followers to vote for them to become some politician, and they don't associate with devotees. Sometimes they worship demigods thinking that they will have lots of money and opulence. Okay, she did a pretty good job. Thank you very much, Prabhupada. And also, we have homework from Sheshta and Samart. Okay, let's read Samart. So he started off with his homework from yesterday. The devotee is pure in his existence, has nothing to do with work, which depends upon the doer of the work, the situation, the endeavor, the fortune. Always engaged in transcendental devotional service, always conscious of his actual position. And you should add to that, as the eternal servant of Krishna. His senses are engaged in serving Krishna, never affected by the actions of the senses. Knows that he is the eternal servitor of Lord Krishna, and he cannot perform any other act than serving the Lord. Okay? And now he added more after reading Srimad Bhagavatam, 5th canto, 5th chapter, 2nd verse. The devotee knows that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, understands that every action or thing he understands. This is a little mistake that Samart made. It should be, he thinks that everything belongs to Krishna, including the body, the mind, the senses, and the intelligence, and the soul. I forgot the soul in your list, but I added it. And then he dovetails everything in the service of Krishna. He follows regulative principles, the 4 regulative principles, the 4 do's and the 4 don'ts. He eats prasadam and goes on Sankirtan regularly. He or she listens to Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita, and by being fully engaged in devotional service, is no longer controlled by the three modes of material nature. And from Bhagavad Gita 5:8-9, the senses are always engaged in sense gratification. These are the symptoms of a materialist, a non-devotee. Senses are always engaged in sense gratification and never understands his or her real position as the eternal servant of the Lord, gets bewildered by the senses and sense gratification, doesn't accept Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead and himself as the servitor of the Lord, claims to be controller, enjoyer, and God. And then from Srimad Bhagavatam 5.5.2, the non-devotee has many false interpretations, identifications, and designations. And they identify living entities as conditioned. They identify living entities by their body, conditioned by the modes of material nature, not the soul. And their false designations lead to fighting and world wars, etc., and they're attached to the body. Okay. Let's read Shrestas now. Just as a like an Excel sheet here of the devotee qualities and the non-devotee qualities. So I won't read what was yesterday's homework that she did, but she added on after reading 5.5.2. The devotee understands that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, understands that Krishna is the Supreme Proprietor and Controller of everything. Everything includes the body, the senses, the mind, the intelligence, the soul. The devotee uses everything for the pleasure of Krishna, including the fruits of work, only serves Krishna favorably all the time. This is called anukulyena. And the devotee follows the regulative principles and the do's and the don'ts. And the devotee engages in preaching, eating only prasadam, going out on Nagar Sankirtan. Due to the performance of service, the devotee's actions produce no karmic reactions. And the devotee is filled with self-realization and knowledge. And the devotee is called Swarupa, which means that eventually the devotee attains a spiritual form that is no longer controlled by the modes of material nature. Okay, very good. And then her list, I won't go over yesterday's homework, but the new points that she makes from Srimad Bhagavatam 5.5.2. The devotee has many upadhis. Upadhis means false identifications and designations. And the devotee identifies with anything but avoids the soul. The devotee identifies with everything material but not the soul. Meaning the body but not the soul, the material body. Hence, the non-devotees, these are non-devotees, I'm sorry. Hence, the non-devotees are always filled with lamentation and hankering. And their false designations lead the non-devotees to get into fights, like the Pakistanis and the Indians, and the Jews and the Palestinians, and so forth. And the non-devotees attached to the virupa. Virupa means the conditioned body. The non-devotees identify with the material body, and because of that, they fall under the control of the three modes of the material nature. Good. So now we'll go forward a little bit with this lecture by Prabhupada. So, now you can make notes as I'm speaking, and those notes will help you do your homework. So, we're going to make a list of the different verses Prabhupada quotes. So number 1 is 1854. Brahmabhuta pasanatma nasochiti nakanksati samaksarve sabhutesu madbhaktin labhate param. So this is explaining characteristics of someone who's achieved Brahman realization. And they are, first of all, prasanatma. They're fully satisfied with their spiritual, let's say, identification as the eternal servant of Krishna. And by that full satisfaction, they no longer have any sochati and kanksati. Sochati is lamentation, and kanksati is hankerings and desires, material desires. And samak sarve sabhutesu, they are equal and friendly with all people. This is a principle, what's called equality. They see everyone on an equal level. And Prabhupada will quote another verse soon about that. So this is 1854. Samak sarve subhutesu means that the devotee is equally disposed toward every living entity. He doesn't say, oh, this is an ant, it's insignificant, and I can step on it and do whatever I want. Oh, this is a person, I have to be a little careful because if I step on this person, I could get arrested. No, they treat the ant and the person equally, with respect. They don't unnecessarily cause harm. So they're equal, samak sarve subhutesu, to all living entities. And mad bhaktim labhate param means when a person is transcendently situated and realizes that he's the eternal servant of Krishna, and he becomes fully joyful, he never laments or desires to have anything. He is equally disposed toward every living entity. In that state, he attains pure devotional service unto the Lord. Okay, so at Mad Bhaktim Labhate Param, one attains the supreme destination, or one attains pure devotional service. So there's no difference between devotional service in this world and devotional service in the spiritual world, if it's rendered purely. Okay, then so next, Prabhupada quotes Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya 19.170. So this is the famous verse that says, Sarvapadi vinir muktam tatparat vinir malam hishikena hishikesha sevanam bhaktir uttamam. So this is a very important verse. It is definitely explaining the qualities of a devotee. So it says that Sarvapadi Vinir Muktam. 1 second, let me just look it up. So by noting down all the verses in the purport, you're going to see how Prabhupada uses these verses, in what context. And eventually, this is going to help us to give a lecture, Krishna conscious lecture. If you see how, and see what verses Prabhupada often quotes, and how to correctly use that in a lecture. So each one of you will be able to do that also. So this verse says, it's from the Narada Pancharatra, and it says, Bhakti, or devotional service, means engaging all our senses in the service of the Lord. the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the master of all the senses. When the spirit soul renders service unto the Supreme, there are two side effects. One is freed from all material designations, and simply by being employed in the service of the Lord, one's senses are purified. So one is freed from material designations, and one's senses are purified. So this is a very important verse. And this Swarupa is explained right before this verse, and it says, after Brahman realization, when one is perfectly free from all material anxieties, that is the beginning of Swarupa. And then the conception of equality, samak sarve subhutesu, or pandita samadarshina. Those who are learned, they have no distinction that I am Indian, you are American, you are Bengali, I am Andhra, and this and that. No, this is all virupa, sarvapadi vinir muktam. We have several times explained, we have to be free from all these designations, that is Swarupa, designationless. When he says designationless, it means no identification with matter and material things. One identifies only with the soul. So, that is Swarupa. And Virupa means one identifies with the body and one becomes subject to the laws of material nature and falls into the cycle of karma. And this cycle of karma we're going to discuss in a minute. We've discussed this before, but it's good to go over these things. So, he quotes the Sarvapadi Vinir Muktam, but before that he quoted Samak Sarve Subhutesu and Pandita Samadarshina. So Samak Sarve Subhutesu is 1854, we already noted that. And now he quotes Pandita Samadarshina. That's the 5th chapter, 18th verse. Vidyavidaye sampani bhavani gabis hastini sunichaiva swapakecha pandita samadarshina. It means the self-realized sage sees with equal vision a brahmana, a cow, and a dog eater, or an ant and an elephant. What is equal vision? He sees that each one of those living entities has a soul that's eternal and is a person, and part and parcel of Krishna. So that is called equal vision. So, and then, so 1854 and 5.18, so 18th chapter, 54th verse, and 5th chapter, 18th verse, both explain equality. Okay. And then number 3 is Sarvapadi Vinir Muktam. That's Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya 19.170. And that verse says, I'll read it again. Bhakti or devotional service means engaging all our senses in the service of the Lord. Well, yeah, we should, because our senses belong to Krishna. We discussed it already. Our senses, our body, our mind. Why do they differentiate body from senses? Because the senses are the instruments in the body that collect knowledge and perform work. So therefore, the rest of the body depends on the senses. It's just like if you have a car but it doesn't have any wheels, and the steering doesn't have a steering wheel nor four wheels and no battery, even though you have a car, you can't drive it. The same way, a body without senses, and there's two main types of senses, knowledge acquiring senses and working senses, you can't do anything. That's why it differentiates between the body, the senses, and the mind, intelligence. Okay, so now we have 3 verses. So that last verse, it says, Bhakti or devotional service means engaging all our senses in the service of the Lord, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the master of all the senses. When the spirit soul renders service unto the Supreme, there are 2 side effects. One is freed from material designations, and one's senses are purified. So, you have a real benefit by becoming free of material designations. Material designations is identifying with the body and the circumstances of the body. One body may be born in India, another body is born in America, another body is born in Siberia. So we're not this body, though. And then the extensions of the body, like family and ethnicity and nationality and so forth, and then uncles and aunties and cousins and so forth, all that, it's like a dynasty, like the Kuru dynasty. These are all temporary things. So, when we become sarvapati vinirmuktam, free from all false designations, at that time, our senses become purified, and we begin to see with the eye of equality. In other words, samak sarvesu bhutesu and pandita samadarshina. We see all living entities as part of the same family because we all have the same father, Krishna. And pandita samadarshina, we have equal vision. One may be a high-class person, one may be a low-class person, one may be a no-class person, but we know that each one of those persons has an eternal soul and a relationship with Krishna. So, when people identify with the body, that's called virupa, and when they're free from these false designations or virupa, they're called swarupa. So, virupa and swarupa. Okay. But when people do have designations, they start fighting. That means that people are not properly educated. Just like, there are high schools where almost every day there's fights. There are high schools in Detroit, there's high schools in Atlanta, there's high schools in Philadelphia, there's high schools in Detroit, where almost every day there's a fight. In fact, there are even gangs in these schools. Maybe you have them here also, in Sammamish. And why is that? Because they're not being educated properly. And then some kids start dressing in all black clothing with tattoos and rings and things in their nose and ears and lips and eyelids. And then other kids are dressing with, number 12 shirts, and they're, a Mariners fan or this fan or that fan. And then so there's different types of dress, different types of music they listen to, and different types of songs that they sing. It's all bodily identifications that are extended into art, sports, and other ways. So But due to these designations, they end up fighting. So then Prabhupada quotes a verse, Asatyam anvasuchas tvam pragdavatam stabhasase. So this says, second chapter, Bhagavad Gita, second chapter, verse number 11, is it? Yeah, I think it's 11. No, not 11, no. Yeah, 11. So this is a very nice verse. And it says that the Supreme Personality of Godhead said, while speaking learned words, Arjuna, you are mourning for what is not worthy of grief. Those who are wise lament neither for the living nor for the dead. So Krishna now is instructing Arjuna why he is in stress, why he's all stressed out and refusing to follow Krishna's order. Okay, so because this is part of lamenting, so there's two signs that a person is still controlled by the modes of material nature. That is, they are lamenting and desiring or hankering. So then he quotes this verse 2:11 to point out hankering, lamenting. So sometimes people say, oh, I'm very sad, I'm not happy, this thing happened, that thing happened, and oh, something happened, somebody died or someone had an accident, and they're just lamenting. There's 1,000 reasons why they lament. Oh, this coronavirus, it's horrible, we can't do what we like to do, and we have to stay at home, etc. So they're just lamenting. So, but they're lamenting only on the basis of the body, the bodily concept of life. Lamenting on the bodily concept of life. Okay. So, someone who's Swarupa, they don't give too much importance about the body. I mean, they maintain the body, but they're not decorating the body in the sense of, cosmetics and flashy clothes and shoes and so forth. They dress very modestly, and they're not spending a lot of money trying to decorate the body. Prabhupada sometimes talks about lipstick and mascara. They said these are completely useless things. But the mascara and lipstick industry is huge. But anyway, then next, then Prabhupada quotes a verse next that says, Muktihit yanvata rupam swarupena vivastiti. This is a popular verse that he quotes. Let me see. It's in the second chapter. Muktihit yanvata rupam swarupena vivastiti. And it's about liberation. So the concept of liberation is misunderstood tremendously, especially by many people. So this is quoted in the second chapter. I'm sorry, not the second chapter. 265. In the fourth chapter, verse number, verse number 36. No. Verse number 35. So let's write that down. Bhagavad Gita 2:35 in the purport. I'm sorry, 4:35 in the purport. And this verse says that Mukti hit yanvata rupam swarupena vivastiti. Liberation means to be situated in one's constitutional position as the eternal servitor of Krishna. In other words, Krishna consciousness. So, where is this verse? It's in Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam, second canto, 10th verse, 10th chapter, 6th verse. So, second canto, 10th chapter, 6th verse. Muktir hitvanvata rupam swarupena vivastiti. Liberation means to be situated in one's constitutional position as an eternal servitor of Krishna. That's the real definition of mukti. Okay. So now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 verses, and in one page. You see how Prabhupada is basically what we're doing now. We're seeing the tapestry of Prabhupada's lecture. The tapestry means how he's put it together. The tapestries have horizontal and vertical threads that are tied together very tightly. If you get a really good handmade carpet rug, it could last many lifetimes because of the number of knots in it and the tightness of them and the quality of the cotton or silk or whatever material they use, as opposed to commercial rugs that are made by machines. So, this is the real meaning of mukti. So Prabhupada says, if we want mukti, or liberation from the cycle of birth and death, and no more conditioning by the modes of material nature, in other words, unconditional life, sagunam samatityaitan brahmabhuyayant kalpate. So this is another verse. This is number 6 verse. It's quoting the 14th chapter, 26th verse. Mamchayo vibhicharine bhakti yogena sevate. Sagunam samatityaitan brahmabhuyaya kalpate. It's explaining how one can be liberated from the cycle of birth and death. So it's 14th chapter, 26th verse, the last verse of the 14th chapter. And what does it say? It says, Mamchayo vibhicharine bhakti yogena sevate sagunam samatityaitan brahmabhuyaya kalpate. One who engages in full devotional service, unfailing in all circumstances, at once transcends the modes of material nature and thus comes to the level of Brahman. So that's 14:26. And Prabhupada says, Sagunan samatityaitan brahmabhuyaya kalpate. He says, that is Swarupa. So this verse is the definition of Swarupa. When one surpasses or one transcends the influence of the modes of material nature by full engagement in devotional service, and that means that one doesn't fall down under any circumstance. So then, Prabhupada says, of course, in the material world, the quality of Brahmana, Satya Samadhamma Tiktiksha Arjava Jnanam Vijnanam Astikam Brahmakarma Svabhavajam. So this is the 7th verse now. This is the 18th chapter, 42nd verse. which explains the qualities of a Brahmana. But actually, he's connected two verses together. So when he says Satya, Titiksha, and Arjava, these are from another verse, and I'll tell you which one that is. But the verse he's quoting, the means to quote is 1842. Samadamak tapak socham santir arjavam evacha jnanam vijnanam sahitam brahmakarma svabhavajam. These are the, let's say, the prominent qualities of a Brahmana. And he says this is the first-class quality within the material world. Now, that sounds really good, but it's not perfect. So therefore, Prabhupada says, but that is also not Swarupa. So Virupa, being conditioned by the modes of material nature, and being conditioned by them, that is Virupa. But now he's trying to explain Swarupa, and he says that just being a first-class Brahmana is not Swarupa. Swarupa means not conditioned by the modes of material nature, because one can still be conditioned, but instead of being conditioned by ignorance and passion, one can be conditioned by goodness. So Brahmanas are not exactly devotees. There are some Brahmanas that are devotees, but most Brahmanas are not devotees or pure Vaishnavas, and we'll explain in a minute. This is what Prabhupada is doing. He says that is also not Swarupa. One may become topmost person within human society by acquiring Brahminical qualification, but that is also not Swarupa. So he's repeated this 3 times. Real Swarupa is above Brahminical qualification. That is Vaishnava. Vaishnava qualification means completely dedicated to the service of Krishna. So that's why he said, verse number 6, Sagunam Samatidhyaitam Brahmabhuya Kalpate. He said, that is Swarupa. That is, if one is engaged in full devotional service and never falls down under any circumstance or unfailing in all circumstances, at once transcends the modes of material nature and thus comes to the level of Brahman. So, let's say, very highly qualified Brahmanas, they are not exactly pure devotees or pure Vaishnavas. So here he says, although they have good qualifications, samadamak tapaksocham santirarjavam evacha, they have good qualifications, but they're not on the level of a Vaishnava yet. Real Swarupa is above that Brahminical qualification. That is Vaishnava. Vaishnava qualification means completely dedicated to the service of Krishna. Sarvapadi vinirmuktam. So again, he's going back to that other verse that was quoted previously, and that is the Sarvapadi vinirmuktam tatparat vena nirmalam. That's a verse from the Padma Purana, was it? Sarvapadi vinirmuktam tatparat vena. That was that is the Narada Pancharatra, I'm sorry. And, okay, where did we note that down? Which one is it? 1842. And, okay, CC 170. I didn't write, let's see, CC 170. Yes, Sarvapadi Vinirmuktam. So, that is Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila, Madhya Lila, verse number that is the Madhya Lila, 19th chapter, 170th verse. Sarvapadi Vinirmuktam. And where did I write that down? Oh yeah, okay. That was our number 3 verse, and that's also Narada Pancharatra. Okay, so again, he quotes that, saying that in connection with what is a pure Vaishnava, who's above the Brahmana. And he says, Sarvapadi Vinirmuktam, CC Madhya 19.170. Even if I consider myself that I am a learned Brahmana, that is also misconception. Because Brahmana is part of the Varnashram system, and the Varnashram system is to help people be elevated from the mode of ignorance to passion to goodness, and then from goodness to transcendental goodness. That's why he's saying that simply being a learned Brahmana, that is also a misconception. That is also not Swarupa. When one understands that I am not Brahmana, not Kshatriya, not Vaishya, not Sudra, nor American, nor Indian, nor this, nor that. Simply, I am spiritual part and parcel of Krishna. And my only business is to serve Krishna, anukulyena Krishnana silanam. So now this is another verse. So this is number 8. Number 8th verse is quoted Bhagavad Gita, 18th chapter, 66th verse, where Krishna says, and this is a verse, Anukul Yasya Sankalpa Pratikul Yasya Varjanam. Let's see, wait a minute, if I made a mistake here, let me just see what it says. Anukul Yena Krishna, Krishnana Silanam. Oh, okay, I'm sorry. It's Atakshi Krishnanama Adi Nabhavidgrayam Indriya. Sevan Mukehi Sivado Swayam Eva Spurat Yada. Is that it? Anukul Yena Krishnana Silanam. Okay, one second. Let me find this verse. This lecture is like the one second. Uttama. Anukuyena. Anukuyena. It's a verse from the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu by Rupa Goswami, where he's defining what is pure devotional service. Sorry. Anukulyena Anya Bilasita Sunyam Gyanakarmadi Anavritam Anukulyena Krishnada Silanam Bhaktir Uttama. So this is a verse that defines what is pure devotional service, and he's quoting it here. It is Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, BRS 1.1.11. It's right in the beginning of the Nectar of Devotion. So let's take a look at that. I'm opening up the Nectar of Devotion and chapter 1. And he's saying here, okay, he says, it's a definition of pure devotional service. Okay, anyway, I'll read the verse. When first-class devotional service develops, one must be devoid of all material desires. Knowledge obtained by monistic philosophy and fruit of action, the devotee must constantly serve Krishna favorably as Krishna desires. So this verse is saying, it's giving several components of pure devotional service. Number one, pure devotional service is devoid of all material desires. Point one. Point two. And it's free of speculation, especially Mayavad speculation. Number three, it's free of fruitive or selfish actions. And number four, one must constantly be engaged in devotional service. So this is the definition of pure devotional service. Okay, so number one, so this is the verse that defines pure devotional service. Point number one, that it's devoid of all material desires. Point number two, it's free of speculation, especially Mayavad philosophy. Number three, free of fruitive actions or selfish activities based on sense gratification. And number four, one must be constantly engaged in devotional service. So that is pure devotional service. Okay? Anya bilasita sunyam, jnana karmani anavritam, anukulyena krishnana silanam, bhaktir uttamam. This is also quoted in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila again, 19.167. So this is verse number 8. And then he says, this or that is first-class life, anukulyena krishnana silanam, which means the service must be rendered favorably. Okay, so that would be number 5 point. Service must be favorable to Krishna. Okay, 5 points. That one, the pure definition of pure devotional service. One, devoid of all material desires. Two, free of speculation, especially Mayavad speculation. Number three, free from fruitive actions or selfish activities for sense gratification. And four, must be engaged constantly in no vacations. And number six, service must be favorably rendered to Krishna. Okay? So when he says anukulyena means favorable. Krishnana silanam means cultivation of service in relationship to Krishna. Bhaktir uttama means first-class devotion. Okay. So, therefore, now it says, that is first-class life. Anukulyena krishnana silanam. Favorable service rendered to Krishna. Okay. And then it says, bhakti means anukula, favorable to Krishna. Just like Kamsa, he was also Krishna conscious. He was always thinking of Krishna. Whether Krishna is born, I have to kill him, whether this or that. He was thinking of Krishna. But that's not anukulyena, that's pratikulyena. That is, he's always thinking of Krishna, but to kill Krishna. And anukulyena is to render service favorable to Krishna. So here you have two words, anukulyena and pratikulyena. Pratikulyena refers to Kamsa, and anukulyena refers to Prahlad Maharaj, for example. Okay. One Krishna conscious is always making plan how to spread Krishna consciousness, and other Krishna conscious how to kill Krishna. So the devotee is always thinking how to spread Krishna consciousness, and the demon is thinking how to kill Krishna or stop Krishna consciousness. Okay. Cultivation of Krishna knowledge, that's anukulyena krishnana silanam, that is required. And when one is fully situated in that Krishna consciousness, that is called mukti. Mukti does not mean now I've got two hands, and later on, when I'm liberated, I'll have four hands. No. Mukti means change of consciousness. So this is the definition of mukti. At this time, the present moment, every one of us, we are thinking, I am this body. This family is my kinsman. Yasyatma buddhi kunape chidatuke swadi kalatra disubhomna ijyati. So this is a verse, Srimad Bhagavatam, so this is number 9. This is Srimad Bhagavatam 10:84-13. Yes, and it's also quoted in Bhagavad Gita, 1st chapter. Yasvyatma buddhi kunape chidatuke swadi kalatra disubhomna ijyati. No, I'm sorry, no, it's not the first chapter, it's another verse. 1 second. Yes, but this is also quoted. Let me see where it is. Yes, yatma buddhi kunape chidatuke. Okay, it's 3rd chapter. And verse number 40. Yat tirtha buddhi salile nakarisij janesu avigyesu sa eva gokara. So this verse says, a human being who identifies his body made of 3 elements with his self, who considers the byproducts of the body to be his kinsmen, who considers the land of birth worshipable, and who goes to the place of pilgrimage simply to take a bath rather than meet men of transcendental knowledge there, is to be considered like an ass or a cow. So this is also quoted in Bhagavad Gita 3.40. Huh? Yeah. Or Srimad Bhagavatam 10:84-13. It's a very famous verse. And this describes people who are, what you would say, in false identification. So what does that mean? 1.1. It means that they identify with the body. Okay. 2. They consider expansions of the body, like children, as kinsmen. or they consider byproducts of the body. As kinsmen. That means the Sanskrit word for that is swajanam. Swajana. That means these are my relatives. This is my family. These are my people. Right? Sometimes black people refer to their other black people as my people. Right? And but the same thing is there in Sanskrit. Swajanam. These are my people. Swajanam means the same thing. And then number 3, they consider land of birth as worshipable. And number 4, they go on pilgrimage to take a bath and not to listen to discourses of saintly persons. Huh? A ritualistic bath, yeah. So in other words, they're completely misidentified. Okay? All right, so that's verse number 9. And now, it's not over yet. We haven't finished the second page, as you can see. Huh? $12? Okay. So then, Prabhupada says, so all this consciousness, as expressed in Yasyatma Buddhi Kunape Tridakduke, is the opposite of Krishna consciousness. So, what does that mean? So, that means that one does not, a Krishna conscious person identifies with the soul, not the body, is not overly attached to expansions of the body in terms of family, kinsmen, relatives, nationality, ethnicity, etc. And doesn't worship the land of birth, and goes on pilgrimage, but to meet saintly people and hear their discourses, not simply to take a ritual bath. Okay. So then Prabhupada says, all these considerations are just like the opposite number of Krishna conscious, when we shall always think of Krishna. So, Krishna consciousness means always thinking of Krishna. Satatam chintayotu mam. Okay, so this is another verse from Bhagavad Gita. Always thinking of Krishna. I think he misquoted it. Let me see. It's 9th chapter. Maybe he didn't misquote it, but 9th chapter, 14th verse, where it says, Satatam kirtayanto mam. So it doesn't say chintayanto, it says kirtayanto mam. Yeah, so it's Satatam kirtayanto mam chitantascha jitavataha namasyantascha mam bhakta nityayukta upasate. So anyway, for me, this is verse number 10. But you'll tell me later on. Number 10. Bhagavad Gita, 9th chapter, 14th verse. Satatam kirtayantumam. There's another verse that says, Ananya chintayantumam ye jana paryapasate. That's another verse. But it's not chintayanto, it's kirtayanto. It's possible that because of Prabhupada's Bengali pronunciation, the person who wrote down this got it wrong. So now Prabhupada says, Satatam kirtantamam, always thinking of Krishna, how to spread Krishna's glories. So this verse says, always chanting my glories, endeavoring with great determination, bowing down before me, these great souls perpetually worship me with devotion. Okay. So Prabhupada says that it is also always thinking of Krishna, how to spread Krishna's glories, how it is possible to adopt the means and ways and plans, always thinking of the means and ways and plans to spread Krishna consciousness. Just like Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did and all the acharyas, the Goswamis. We have to follow Mahajana Yenagata Sapanta. That's another verse. This is number 11. And this is the last line of a verse called Tarko Pratista Shrutayo Vibhina. That is, one second, I'll tell you. Tarko Pratista. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So this is the verse. Tarko Pratista Shrutayo Vibhina Nasav Rishi Yashamatam Nabinam Dharmasya Tattvam Nihitam Guhayam Mahajana Yenagata Sapanta. So this is Mahabharata Vana Parva 313.117, but it is also quoted in the Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila 17.186. It's a very famous verse, and what does it say? It says, dry arguments are inconclusive. A great personality whose opinion does not differ from others is not considered a great sage. Simply by studying the Vedas, which are variegated, one cannot come to the right path by which religious principles are understood. The solid truth of religious principles is hidden in the heart of an unadulterated, self-realized person. Consequently, as the Shastras confirm, one should accept whatever progressive path the Mahajanas advocate. So, that's a very important verse. It is basically the, what you can call the vanguard verse. Whenever you're in doubt, you should always go back to this point, Mahajana Yenagata Sapanta. We should follow the path chalked out by the great Mahajans. So, if we simply try to understand Vedic literature with reason and logic, we will at least 20% of the time or more make mistakes. Does that mean the Vedic literatures are not reasonable or rational and logical? No, it doesn't mean that. It just means that we do not have the mental capacity to perfectly understand the Vedas simply by reading them. There's a lot of things we don't understand. Like I can show you a book written by a mathematician. You won't understand one word in it. There are no words. They're all symbols, mathematical symbols. Another mathematician will understand it. But if you look at it, you get confused. You don't know what they're talking about. So the Vedas, even though they're translated into English, still one needs to have the help of pure devotees to understand the right meaning. Now, I'll give you an example. Today someone asked me a question about a verse in Bhagavad Gita that they don't understand. So it's 18th chapter, verse number. Let's see. 1 second. Yeah, 18th chapter, 23rd verse. A person asked me a question about this. In this verse it says, that action which is regulated and which is performed without attachment, without love or hatred, and without desire for fruitive results is said to be in the mode of goodness. Now, the question was, the person said, I don't understand this. How, this is talking about the mode of goodness. How can they act without love? Because the mistake that this person was making. Well, first of all, let's read the purport, because the purport gives a clearer understanding of the verse. And it says, regulated occupational duties as prescribed in the scriptures, in terms of the different orders and divisions of society, performed without attachment or proprietary rights, and therefore without any love or hatred, and performed in Krishna consciousness for the satisfaction of the Supreme, without self-satisfaction or self-gratification, are called actions in the mode of goodness. Now, what did we read today in this lecture? It says that it says, one may become the topmost person within human society by acquiring Brahminical qualification, but that is also not Swarupa. Real Swarupa is above that Brahminical qualification. That is Vaishnava. Vaishnava qualification means completely dedicated to the service of Krishna. Sarvapadi vinirmuktam. Even if I consider myself that I am a learned Brahmana, that is also a misconception. That is also not Swarupa. Swarupa means one who's completely free from the influence of the three modes of material nature, goodness, passion, and ignorance, and is situated in Krishna consciousness as the eternal servant of Krishna. When one understands that I am not Brahmana, not Kshatriya, not Vaishya, not Sudra, nor American, nor Indian, nor this, nor that. Simply I am spiritual part and parcel of Krishna, and my only business is to serve Krishna. Anukulyena Krishnana Silanam. So the person's question today was, earlier today, is that action which is regulated and which is performed without attachment, without love or hatred, and without desire for fruitive results is said to be in the mode of goodness. So the person's mistake was thinking that this description of a Brahminical person should be a description of a pure devotee of Krishna. But that's not true. That's why he said here that if I consider myself that I am a learned Brahmana, that is also misconception. So what is a misconception? Well, unless one is situated in pure devotional service, and we define what pure devotional service is. 1, it is devoid of all material desires. 2, free from speculation, especially impersonalism or Mayavad philosophy. 3, free from fruitive actions, actions meant for one's personal sense gratification. 4, one is constantly engaged. There's no vacation. And 5, the service must be favorable to Krishna. Okay, so that's a definition of pure devotional service. So one may have Brahminical qualifications, but still may be attached to the feeling of well-being, to the prestige of the position, to the perks or the benefits, material benefits that come with the position, etc., although they're in the mode of goodness. So when it says here, that action which is regulated and which is performed without attachment, without love or hatred, and without desire for fruitive results is said to be in the mode of goodness. Now, that means when it says without love, this is what confused the person. They were thinking, well, this sounds like a definition of a pure devotee. How can they be without love? But this is rather a definition of a, let's say, a brahmana situated in the mode of goodness. And in the purport, here is the key. In the purport it said, regulated occupational duties as prescribed in the scriptures in terms of the different orders and divisions of society, performed without attachment or proprietary rights, and therefore without any love or hatred, and performed in Krishna consciousness for the satisfaction of Supreme, without self-satisfaction or self-gratification, are called actions in the mode of goodness. Now, what's missing here is, what that lady was missing was, in the purport, Prabhupada explains regulated occupational duties as prescribed in the scriptures in terms of the different orders and divisions of society. So those orders of society are Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Sudra. Performed without attachment or proprietary rights. Well, and therefore without any love or hatred. So when there's love or hatred, that means attachment. Actually, it's called Icha Dvesa. Icha means a desires, and Dvesa means hatred, when the desires are frustrated, right? So this love would be love for position, love for recognition, love for material benefits, stemming from being qualified as a brahmana. So if there is any attachment and let's say competitive nature, then the person is simply a brahmana. They're not a pure Vaishnava. The pure Vaishnava doesn't have attachment or hatred, but a pure Vaishnava has pure love for Krishna. So therefore, when it says without any love or hatred, without any attachment or hatred, that's referring to a brahmana who's in the mode of goodness, but is not necessarily a Vaishnava. And then it says, and performed in Krishna consciousness for the satisfaction of Supreme. Now he's talking about the transcendental position of a devotee who's not seeking self-satisfaction or self-gratification. This is called actions in the mode of goodness. Now, one can act in this way, but unless they have love of Krishna, they're simply a brahmana and not a brahmana Vaishnava. So this is what confused the person that asked me the question when it said without any love. So what is meant there is attachment, for love in the sense of attachment for the result of material result stemming from the position or the prestige of being a brahmana. But when one is engaged in Krishna consciousness, they're devoid of any personal motive other than to please Krishna. Okay, so this is where that's why Prabhupada says here that Vaishnava's qualification means completely dedicated to the service of Krishna. The Brahminical qualification is that they are first class in their behavior. Samadhamak tapak sochams, Shantir. Okay, so their qualities, they have these 8 qualities, Brahminical qualities. Samadhamak tapakso cham shantir arjavam evacha gyanam vigyanam sayitam yajgadva brahma karma swabhavajam. So that's the 18th chapter, Bhagavad Gita, verse number 42, that explains the qualities of a Brahmana. The difference is the Brahmana is still somewhat influenced by the mode of goodness, whereas a Vaishnava is a liberated soul and transcendental to a Brahmana. So that's what this class is all about that Prabhupada is giving. He's explaining the difference between a Brahmana and a Vaishnava. The Vaishnava is engaged in pure devotional service. The Brahmana still may be somewhat influenced by the mode of goodness. Okay. So now we'll finish the second page. Mahajana Yenikata Sapanta. So now Prabhupada goes back to the original verse that we haven't discussed, and that is, he's lecturing on the 5th chapter, 5th canto, 5th chapter, 2nd verse. Mahat sevam dwaram ahur vimuktes tamo dwaram yositam sangi sangam. So he mentions that now. He says, Mahajana yenikata sapanta. And then he says, Mahat Seva, Mahajana. To follow the Mahajana means to serve their mission. So, Shri Chaitanya Manubhistam Sapitam Yena Bhutali Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. So he's quoting this verse. This was spoken. This is 12th verse. When will Sri Rupa Goswami Prabhupada, who has established within this material world the mission to fulfill the desire of Lord Chaitanya, give me shelter under his lotus feet? So this is one of the invocation verses that we chant before we recite, or before we give a lecture on Bhagavad Gita or Srimad Bhagavatam. And it says, Shri Chaitanya Manubhistam Shapitam Yena Bhutali. So this is a prayer spoken originally. It says, when will Srila Rupa Goswami Prabhupada, so we say, Om Aganya Timirandasya Gyanandhyana Salakaya, and so forth, and then Shri Chaitanya Manubhistam Shapitam Yena Bhutali. Who was this spoken by, though? That's the question. Okay, I'll have to find that. I'm not sure. But it's a very famous verse. We would quote it all the time before we begin the Bhagavad Gita or Srimad Bhagavatam. So that's 12. And then we Gaudiya Vaishnavas, we are known as Rupanuga. Rupanuga means the followers of Rupa Goswami. So why we should become followers of Rupa Goswami? Because Sri Chaitanya Manubhistam Sapitam Yena Bhutali. He wanted to establish the mission of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Manubhistam, Sri Chaitanya, Manubhistam, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The same thing. This is called disciplic succession. Krishna wanted that everyone be surrendered to me. He personally therefore comes and speaks Bhagavad Gita, aiming at Arjuna, who was perplexed in the battle of Kurukshetra. And he explained karma, jnana, yoga, so many things. But ultimately, he assured Arjuna, my dear Arjuna, you are a dear friend to me, therefore I am speaking to you the real purpose of life, sarvadharmam parityaja mamekam saranam braja. This is the real dharmam parityagya. But people misunderstood him. Therefore, Krishna came as a devotee, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Rupa Goswami can understand that. Therefore, he offered his first prayer to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Namo Maha Vadanyaya Krishna Prema. Okay, so anyway, we're going to stop at the end of the second page. And your homework is to write down and give the reference of each one of the verses that Prabhupada quoted in the first 2 pages. Okay, so we ended up with 12, but there might be more. There might be something I missed. Obviously, we missed the verse itself, 5.5.2. And there are some other verses that he just hinted at. But anyway, you write down these verses and give a short, very short explanation of their importance, how Prabhupada is, why he's using them in this sequence. Why is he using it in this sequence? We sort of went over it now, but you do a more thorough study of it. So now you're seeing how Prabhupada preaches. He supports every statement he makes with Shastric evidence. And no ordinary person can do this and do it perfectly like this, right in a very systematic way. So this is a important, let's say, exercise to learn, and because if you regularly listen to Prabhupada's lectures, you'll see many of the verses he's quoting here, he quotes in other places also. So it's good to be able to correlate the statement he's trying to make with the verse he's using to support it. Okay? So basically what you want to do is give a short explanation why he's using that particular verse in that particular sequence of verses. Okay? Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. We'll go over this some more tomorrow. This is a whole lecture on 2 pages of Prabhupada's lecture. If you understand just those 2 pages, you can explain all of Krishna consciousness. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Okay, 1 second. Okay, go ahead. I have 1854 and then 518. That was number 3 for me.
So 1, 2, 3, 211,
211, 4,
435.
5.
Then Srimad Bhagavatam 2.6. This is regarding liberation is permanent situation, not the form of entity.
No, but that's the same as 4.35.